Shalom and welcome to Once Upon a Soul, an exploration of 68 unique stories inspired by the teachings of Rav Asher Freund, Zatzal. This podcast series is sponsored in loving memory of Mrs. Klari Safran, Alea HaShalom. May the neshama of Rivka Sarah Bas Rabbi Yehושע have an aliyah. Ma'aseh haya b'shuk shel Yerushalayim. The fifth story takes place in the marketplaces of Yerushalayim. And the story is a very short one, but like many of our incredible, beautiful texts, the shorter, the more profound, and the more commentary is needed to unpack. A tiny tosfos, just a few words, is sometimes so much more difficult to fully appreciate than the very large tosfosim. And the same is true, lahavdil, but the same is true for this tiny one-line story. Ma'aseh haya b'shuk shel Yerushalayim. There was a story that took place in the marketplace of Yerushalayim. She'echad haya oiver v'tzayik, that there was an individual that was running through the streets and screaming, Yerushalayim shel mata, the Yerushalayim below, he Yerushalayim shel mala. It itself is the Yerushalayim above. And that's the whole story, just one line. The Yerushalayim below is itself the Yerushalayim above. And of course the Mechaber is making reference to the Gemara in Tainis that teaches that based on the pasuk Yerushalayim habenuya, the rebuilt Yerushalayim ki ir shechura lo yachtav, is a city that is connected to itself. And the tzaddikim teach in the Gemara that Yerushalayim has a counterpart in Shamayim. There's Yerushalayim shel mata, and there's also Yerushalayim shel mala. So what this means very deeply, al pi Chasidus, al pi Kabbalah, the depth of what these two places are, the Yerushalayim shel mata and the Yerushalayim shel mala, the tzaddikim teach that these two places are rooted in the two letters Hey in Hashem's name. Yud, Hey, and then Vav, and then a final Hey. These two letters, Hey and Hey, on either side of the name Yud Ke Vav Ke, the first belonging to the first segment, which is the first two letters, Yud and Hey, and the second belonging to the second segment of Vav and Hey, these two letters allude to the Yerushalayim Shel Mala and the Yerushalayim Shel Mata. And very, very basically, because this would require a lot of different hakdamas and introductory material, but very basically, these two components of Hashem's name relate respectively to the spiritual realm and then to the physical realm. And we know this because the pasuk says, Yismechu hashamayim v'sagel haaretz. Let the heavens rejoice and let the earth celebrate and exult. And the tzaddikim point out that the Rosh Tevis of Yismechu Hashamayim is Yud and Hey, which is the first two letters of Hashem's name, and that's the aspect of Shamayim, the heavenly aspect of creation, the more ethereal, transcendent, spiritual realms. And then the Rosh Tevis of V'sagel Haaretz is, of course, Rosh Tevis Vav Hey. And that alludes to the earthly realms, the material realms, the realms that are lower in the Seder Shtalshalus and the cascade of godliness, the chain of emanation, which bridges the gap between HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvoidei ve'atzmai, so to speak, the Ein Sof, the infinite, and the physical creation that's a derivative of His Ar, of His emanation, that abides beyond level after level after level of successive concealment, from the letter Yud down to the Hey, from the letter Hey down to the Vav, and then finally down to the final Hey, which alludes to our physical experience of creation. But the tzaddikim teach that because there are two letters Hey in Hashem's name, the lower letter Hey, which alludes, as we've seen, to the pinnacle of physicality, to our created realm, the world that we inhabit, is ultimately intended to be reflective of the upper Hey, where it is rooted. That ultimately this world is supposed to reflect the more revealed levels of godliness in the spiritual realms above. And that's why they're really composed of the same letter, because really what it's meant to be is just a mirror image of that place of revealed godliness and what's referred to as the Olam HaBriya, the world of creation, the world of Yesh Me'ayin, where we're able to see the way in which everything physical or everything perceptible, perceivable within creation is a direct derivative of the realm of the Creator, of the realm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is called Ayin, who's nothingness, so to speak, because we can't grasp Him, who's infinite. And ultimately, if we develop the right eyes, we're able to see the way in which this world, with all of its concealment and hester, can actually be experienced as the greatest revelation of godliness, akin to the levels of godliness that are reflected in the first hay of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the place of Yisimchu Hashamayim, the place of the more spiritual revealed world. We can perceive that reflected in the lower hay of Esagel Haaretz, of this physical world. We can find the Creator within His creation, the power of the Maker within the made. And when we look at this pasuk that teaches about a Yerushalayim Shel Mala and a Yerushalayim Shel Mata, Yerushalayim habenuya ki ir shechubra la yachtav. These words, shechubra la yachtav, which mean it's a city that's connected unto itself in total unity. Shechubra la yachtav. We can actually read these words, Yerushalayim habenuya, that the completely built Yerushalayim and the hasaga of Yerushalayim and the way in which we can develop Yerushalayim eyes of faith, eyes of seeing the way in which, like the Beis HaMikdash bridged heaven and earth, was the place where heaven and earth kissed. We can see the way in which all of physicality is absolutely bound up with the spiritual realm beyond. Yerushalayim habenuya. Ki ir shechubra lo yachtav can be read ki ir shechubar hey lehei yachtav. The word chubra can be divided into these two elements, chubar hey, chubra is chubar hey, and la can also be seen as two elements, lehei. La is lehei. So Yerushalayim habenuya is ki ir shechubar hey lehei, shechubra la yachtav, where there's a unification between the lower hey and the upper hey, the Yerushalayim Shel Mata and the Yerushalayim Shel Mala. And perhaps this is the depth of this very tiny story, but such a wonderful imagery of a Yid that has those kinds of eyes, the eyes of the tzaddik, the Einei Hashem al tzaddikim, the eyes that can see beyond the facade of concealment, the eyes that can perceive the way in which this world does not hide Hashem, but this world is the vessel within which Hashem is hidden. That's why it's called Olam, not because it hides, but because it allows Hashem to hide within it so that He can be revealed through our experience of life. This Yid is running through the shuk. Oiver v'tsoyek. Oiver, he realizes this world that seems so permanent, it's a passing world. It's a world of adiras arai. It's a world of sukkahs. It's a world of transience. We're only here so that we can peer beyond the external facade, so that we too can proclaim and to join Him in screaming, Yerushalayim Shel Mata, this lowly experience of the physical Yerushalayim that we see with our eyes, He, Yerushalayim Shel Mala. It itself is reflecting the Yerushalayim Shel Mala. Ki ir shechubra la yachtav, hey lehei. How the lower hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, the V'sagel Haaretz, is a perfect reflection of the upper hay of Yismechu Hashamayim. Wishing you the most wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening.